Hello and welcome to our webinar on BIM and digital transformation, the key processes, brought to you by Omnix. Today, we'll focus mainly on the key processes part of that digital transformation, looking at what those core processes are, how they should be put in place, and then how they should be managed on an ongoing basis. With our BIM experts, we'll discuss the prerequisites, implementation, maintenance, and ROI using real examples where possible. This will build into a picture of how BIM can make transformational changes to the way organizations manage AEC projects. My name is Rob Jones, partner at B2B Connect, and I'll be your host. Joining me are Emmanuel Bogris, founder and managing director of EB Architects, Dr. Amanth CB, head of BIM strategy, Larsen & Toubro, and president, India BIM Association, Mohammed Kamal Sharif, digital delivery manager at Qiddiya Investment Company, Sumanth KL, design delivery head at Semak Consultants, Arsan Safarian, director of information and data management at Saudi Entertainment Ventures. Following our discussion, we'll have a short presentation from Sorin Bulaka, technical specialist, AEC at Autodesk Middle East. After that, we'll move to audience questions. Emmanuel and Amarnath, I'm going to start with you. So I'll start Emmanuel first. Can you give me some examples of where BIM has been misadopted or implemented only as a tick box exercise?
Well, Rob, unfortunately, I could give many, and I really feel sorry about this. I mean, we know that BIM has become an international trend. It's getting more and more popular in the projects around the world. But the truth is that it has not reached its full potential when it's implemented. And in many cases of projects that we have also participated as architects and BIM specialists, we experience a situation where we have contributed to the development of rich models in terms of geometry and embedded information data as well. But along the path of the development of the design and subsequently to the construction stage or the handover, these models are not properly utilized for the benefit and advantage of the project. A typical example is projects where these models, when they are submitted to the clients, are stored somewhere, and the exported drawings in CAD formats are those that are used from the beginning of the construction on. So, of course, this is very typical. While observing the situation, I have several conclusions why this is happening, and probably we might be interested in sharing these thoughts. But as a final conclusion, yes, there are many occasions where BIM is not something more than a tick box in the process due to its popularity and recognition as a global trend.
So when you're working with clients, and obviously you're working because of what you do, you're working very early on with clients, how are you trying to make sure that the entire chain, that's from kickoff all the way through to handover, isn't actually doing this, isn't just following a tick box? How are you trying to encourage its proper use?
Well, actually, I'm trying to do the best I can, but the way projects are organized most of the times does not leave a lot of room to a consultant to have a critical impact to this. I encourage the system to focus in the anticipated benefits and the anticipated outcomes. This is a very important thing to provide an answer to the question why. Do we want to do BIM this project? Sometimes the answer might be because it is a trend, because this will add a commercial value. Okay, I will respect that, but personally, I believe it's a lot of waste. It's not worth it to do just because it will, support a marketing approach to the project. Another thing I will try to do is to encourage a deep assessment of the BIM capabilities of the whole team. I mean, if there is not a plan in place that focus on the development of skills and knowledge between the project shareholders, then there is a big chance that the whole process will fail.
I mean, that's a very interesting point you're making there, and actually one that I'm going to ask you about and come back to a little bit later on as well, because I think you're right. It's quite an important area. So, Amarnath, again, similar for you. Where are the examples of it being misadopted? And again, I guess if we're going to be talking digital transformation, this needs to be really treated as an ongoing, evolving process, doesn't it? One where projects are continually, or where these processes are built on project by project.
This is a very important topic to discuss. In fact, when we say about the BIM usage, many people believe that BIM is a software. I mean, at least to the people when I speak to them, it's not. It's all about the data management which has to be done across the life cycle, and which is missed many of the times because the client expectations are not pretty clear. If the client is not fully mature, so they don't clearly specify what they need in the AR, and mainly BIM is seen as an output. What is the output at different phases, but people don't focus more on the methodology of how that output is getting delivered. These are few reasons where BIM becomes a little bit challenging and becomes like a tick box. The client is asking me for the CDE, set up the CDE. The client is asking me for a so-and-so LOD model, give the LOD model. But you are using CDE, but you're not managing the progress on day-to-day basis. Because client is not monitoring that. It all depends on what client is asking and how the client is controlling the quality, and then how the service providers are delivering that. And also the key thing here is when we understand BIM as an overall process in the life cycle, then we will be able to deliver BIM and its return on investment. As we all know that the investment happens in the design phase, where you have to procure the softwares, hardware, manpower, skill building, team formations, and then you are developing a detailed BIM models. But when it comes to construction, people are not using that models though for actual field BIM implementations, where the capex part, 10% of return on investment is over there. And when it comes to the handover, if you don't have a digital twin to integrate for your facility management systems, it becomes a challenge for the facility maintenance through so-called BIM models. So even in the OPEX, if you want to realize that 10% plus return on investment, there's a investment happening during the handover and integration for FM systems. So there's two places where investments are happening and other places you have to realize the returns. But I don't see that process going on. So people feel it as an investment, but no returns. And that's one challenge, when it comes to the real implementation. To some level, the building sector has matured to have BIM implemented. When it comes to infrastructure, it's still maturing. There are no completely available solutions to support the overall BIM implementation journey.
Samantha, turning to you, we've had some kind of quick examples there of where perhaps it's a bit of a tick box exercise, and we've talked a little bit about that kind of ongoing process, the training that needs to be done, etc., etc. So for you, what are the key processes? And at the beginning, I was saying we really wanted to focus on those key processes. So what are the key processes an organization must go through to successfully adopt BIM?
The first thing actually what we have to just look into that is the first we have to do the plan, why actually we want to go for this BIM. So that's the key area where actually the corporate vision matters, how the company has to look at the maybe down the line, maybe 5 years or maybe 10 years, where the company want to be. So what is our who is our target customers, and what is the problem that we are facing in delivering the products, whatever the target customer is requiring. So if you just analyze all these things, you'll be coming up with the like questions like what software we have to go or what approach we have to take to see that all these problems are resolved. So planning is very important in this. Corporate vision has to contemplate the implementation, BIM implementation, what we are planning to do. And like even the organization should think why actually we have to do this, because our end customers or the target customers, in case if we give them the very good quality product, then obviously they'll be our promoters, business promoters. So company has to think in that way. So corporate vision has to be the one thing that we have to see, and then also like opportunities, what we have, and what is the problem that we are facing, and who is our target customers. According to that, we have to frame particular solution for that. And BIM has a lot of options wherein we can tailor made to the any problem that we are having on the market, and then we'll be having a lot of solutions for that also. And business model also, it has to, like in case if you are thinking of improving our efficiency, then obviously is that we'll be completing the project maybe earlier than what we have thought. So it is giving us saving in time, and that saving in time can be like we can take up the new projects which will increase our revenue over time, and that comes in the plan. And the second one which I would like to discuss about is the like a procure. So in the procurement, we need to go for an engaged team. So we need to identify a team who will be more proactive towards digital learning, and then also going 3D, and they will be having a positive mindset about changing the company's image. And those team, we have to identify those people. In case if we have internal, it's better, but in case if we don't have people internal, we have to go for external hiring also, because training the internal staff, it will take a long process. But if we get a external staff also, we have to just change them to the organization culture. So that you have to develop, and then after that we have to take it forward with a both hybrid mechanism. And we have to upgrade our infrastructure. Obviously we have to go for a right software, and we also have to upgrade our the computers which are with the high-end computers. And also like we need to have that we need to train the people. So that is a skill development, so that we need to do identify the right partner for the right solution. So they'll be able to give us, like they can handhold us, they can take us to the expertise level what we are looking at. So then
And then the implementation?
Yeah, implementation will come next on that. So once you go for the implementation, there will be like we'll be having one standardized documentation deliverables and everything that we have to create that system, because directly everybody will be having their own system of drafting, their own system of modeling and everything. So we have to standardize, and then we have to go for a pilot project. So once you go for the pilot project, it has to be a small, and it has to have all the elements that we are looking for to implement and identify and understand how the software runs. And then after that, once it is successfully done, we'll be identifying what is the problem that we have faced, where actually we can improve ourselves. And after that, we'll go for the live. And before going live, we have to inform our stakeholders, for example, our clients, like informing about like how actually we are changing ourselves to give them the best results, the quality products, what they're expecting. And second, after that, after implementation, we'll go in for the improvement. So improvement is nothing but like whatever we are doing, we'll be trying to improve ourselves over the time, identifying the new right now BIM model is every day we are coming up with a new technology. So any plugins that is coming or any additional features that is coming, that we have to upgrade ourselves to see that whatever we are giving the delivery to the client, obviously it has to be the best among the industry. Then there'll be our as I told you, there'll be our business promoter as well, and we'll be having more projects coming down the line.
So Arsene, we've heard there from Samantha a process of plan, procurement, implementation, pilot, improvement. What for you as a client, how do those processes differ? And are you taking an organizational approach or a project-based approach when you're doing this?
We are taking a portfolio-wide approach, and we're trying to standardize our processes across the portfolio when it comes to data management, BIM, GIS, and what have you. And obviously, our expectations are much like what Samantha and everybody else explained so far. In terms of design consultants, we would ideally expect them to, be efficient, depending on the type of the contract we engage with consultants or contractors. Let's say in case of fixed price lump sum contracts, it is to the best interest of the consultant or the contractor to be as efficient as they can in the process, implementing BIM and anything else that comes with it. Because as a client, ideally, we have no direct benefits there. We have indirect benefits, obviously, during the development and delivery stage. But we're looking forward to aggregating data and using that towards the handover and facilities management stage. And when we do that, 3D or visuals, for that matter, doesn't add as much value as it's perceived. What matters is data, as Amanat mentioned earlier. And we're using these methods and processes along the way to sort of spread the benefits across the supply chain and benefit ourselves towards the end of it. So that's the approach and the summary of expectations that we would want to.
So you're expecting a standardized approach through
across the portfolio. Yeah.
Okay, because that way, when you get to handover, actually what is handed over to you, you can use, and it's meaningful and is long-term in terms of its usefulness.
Correct. And what we do, we're doing at these early stages of our portfolio development is we're standardizing the procurement set of documents that will eventually drive different stakeholders on different projects across the portfolio to deliver in a reasonably similar manner.
Well, when we look into the strategies, it's two dimensions. One side, you have to focus on how do you strategize your deliverables for the project. And also when you're looking at an organization level, you have to plan out what should be your next 3 to 5 years plan for the digital transformation journey. So there are two dimensions, but somewhere when you look for organization level transformation to happen, you have to make sure that the transformation strategies are set for the projects also. Because when I say a project, it's a temporary teams which comes in from different organizations. But when it comes to an organization, it's the same team which is based in the same company. It has a little bit of difference, and the capability building becomes very critical in an organization strategy, because down the line, if you want to deliver some projects, so do I have a capable team in all the kind of departments, like maybe for a procurement, supply chain, safety, quality, legal, design, execution. That perspective becomes very critical to make sure that how the trends are moving, because BIM is not fully matured yet. It's going to take few years. And how do we make sure that our organization strategies are set in such a way that our roadmap is set in such a way that we can be able to deal with that kind of matured BIM expectations from the client. So project strategies are a little bit different and organization strategies are a bit different, but if project strategies are set well and projects are delivered well, obviously the organization digital transformation drive will come true.
It's a very interesting point you're making, which is, project teams are temporary, and this information actually needs to be something which is permanent for the people who it's handed over to. And Mohammed, I guess it must be the same for you, because you would fit on the client side as well as Kidia, correct?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So you're expecting, again, similar sorts of thing in terms of that standardized approach, and equally, what other types of tools, of digital tools, are you looking to have implemented to run alongside BIM?
Okay, as Arsen mentioned, and also Dr. Amantha, regarding the digital transformation, you are talking about the realignment for some technology that you have, maybe investment, maybe business models to achieve your goals. So the most important thing, what are your goals that you are looking for? These goals may be on a country level, maybe this will be on a company level, client level, and maybe it's from the supply chain, consultant and contractors. Based on each vision, you are looking which industry or which supporting technology that we can use to achieve our goals. So for an example, Dr. Amantha mentioned and Arsen mentioned BIM and GIS. So you can do this kind of integration to cover your projects across a city level, for an example, or if you are a client and you have multiple projects or multiple facilities within different places in your country, maybe out of the country in other areas. So you can start to mention, okay, I can manage all the facilities and I can see from them all of them in one place. So you are doing this kind of integration between the geospatial technologies, processes, and so on, and your BIM model. So BIM is just maybe it's a start. Your BIM models, it's your product, and then you can use other technologies, something like the visualization. So maybe if you would like to use immersive environments, augmented reality, virtual reality for the customer experience processes, maybe you can use it for lease management. So it's based at the end what will be the output, and then you can start to use other digital transformation technologies, geospatial, visualization ones, the industrial fourth revolution, such the robotics, IoT sensors for the smart city management. If we are talking about 3D printing, prefabrication, data-driven analytics even. So you can start to check which goal that you would like to achieve, and based on them, you can do a migration, or I will not say migration, it will be cooperation between different technologies to achieve your goals.
So is this something that you're expecting from your contractors and consultants? Because Kidia is a pretty big project. I know it's a multi-year project. Are you expecting these kinds of tools to be integrated to help with your development?
You have two areas also, as all of the speakers that they have mentioned. You have some areas which you are lacking some capabilities. So it's based on the maturity of the market and the availability of the resources. Maybe they will have external expertise to be join the market. And the second thing, which is the mandating from the client perspective. So sometimes you have to put your requirements within your contract to, I'll not say force, okay, but you are raising the awareness of the market by mandating your requirements. So yes, some of the projects with the unique natures like the bars, the sports one, the atrium, and so on, all of these projects, maybe you need some different capabilities, and you have to force this in the contracts. Others, you are encouraging the contractors to use the technology to achieve the whole digital transformation aspect, even from their side.
Amarnath, with regards to what you've just heard, in terms of talking about different expectations, how they want to bolt different tools together, how people expect or companies expect this to increasingly be used in the future, and how this is kind of an ongoing evolutionary process. Is there enough discussion and planning at the procurement stage about how these technologies will be integrated and used, particularly used to keep a project on budget, on time, and so on?
Yeah, the key situation is, like, for a contractor, there are two types of clients, where the clients are saying, I need a BIM, and they're putting in the EIR, and there's another type of clients who are not saying they need a BIM. So when you deal with both the situations, we have to be pretty clear. Like, the client is mentioning, these are the BIM users I need in the project, in the EIR, and then you plan out the pre-bid, post-bid BIM execution plans and so on. And you have to plan out your technologies for each of these BIM users to be delivered. When it comes to client where he's not asking for BIM, so it's a advantages what we are seeing is within the company. So what we want to benefit as a EPC contractor, then we focus on those BIM users for us to activate. So in fact, in this current scenario, we have 20 to 30 vendors providing the BIM solutions, 200 to 300 of solutions. And when we speak about integrated BIM, we have to make sure that solutions which are bringing together on a platform should be interoperable. And that's where the open BIM, closed BIM discussions come in. So that kind of integrated BIM is still not so workable yet in the market, even though after the open BIM and things come in. So it becomes a little bit challenging for organizations to plan out which technologies from which vendors and try to make sure that your project deliverables are interoperable. And this kind of situations are pretty practical at this point of time. So it need a better planning, understanding which are the tech vendors you are coordinating with, and look into their solutions and their capabilities, and then look into what client is expecting in their projects. And also when client is not asking, what is the items you want to activate in the company, and then plan out, the kind of linkage between these solutions and their deliverables. And obviously all solutions are not integratable. You need a plugins to activate that connects. We are at this stage at point of time.
So, I mean, you mentioned there that there's not as much integration as there could be. And what's the barrier there? Is it technical? Is it financial? Is it that the tools are available, but people just don't know how to integrate them all yet? What's the holdup?
Yeah. So what happens here is there are some people who are very much working with Autodesk solutions, or someone working with Bentley solutions, or Trimble, or Dassault, or XYZ vendors solutions. And when it comes to a particular project, it's a temporary team, as I said to you. So when you have to bring them on board, probably a partner is working on some other solution. You have to make sure that the data delivered from that particular solution is interoperable with the client facility management solution, or from the design team to the contractor using solutions, or the overall as an ERP systems what a company has. It's still a little bit of challenge situations where if you want to really look into the integrated BIM, so-called for benefiting the complete return on investment across the life cycle. And also when it comes to the new solutions, you may not have the team which is capable on that. And the softwares are changing day by day and every year upgrades. And it's a little bit challenging when the situation is like, 50% clients ask for BIM and other 50% people are not asking for it. So it's all investment goes into the company's budget. It's not that you can charge your clients on that perspective if it's on an organization level. At a project level, when client is asking, is putting in the investment for that, that's not a problem at all.
So Emmanuel, I think actually my next question leads on quite nicely from the comments just made by Amarnath. You've talked about democratizing BIM. I've heard you talking about democratizing BIM and ensuring that as a company, the human impact has been considered. And I think that's kind of some aspects of that were being alluded to there in terms of making sure the skills were in place, etc. So when you're talking about democratizing BIM, what are you thinking? How would you like to see that happen? What do you expect to see in place?
Actually, I'm thinking that it is taking too long. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the transition from drawing by hand to drawing using CAD, and this happened quite fast. And most probably because the mentality was not that challenged. I mean, we still used lines to represent what was to be designed and constructed. But the step going from CAD to BIM, it takes a lot longer than I thought it should. And thinking that technology is there, I mean, hardware is now very powerful, software is coming more and more powerful and more user-friendly. We have the cloud, which is so convenient to all these things, and we have all these emerging technologies like Internet of Things. It's a very good thing. Okay, I agree that there is some work to be done in terms of interoperability, but there is also a lot of progress. And we have also augmented reality on all this stuff. So what is missing?
Can I jump in here?
Yeah, of course.
I think I have a short answer for that. The difference between migration from manual drafting to CAD and from CAD to BIM is that the first place it was manual labor being replaced by technology. Today we have technology fighting another technology. I think that's what makes it hard. My 2 cents.
Yeah, of course, this might cover it all in a sentence, but I will try to expand a little bit better on this. I mean, according to my opinion, it's the human factor. and in many ways in several levels. So there is still a gap between what the industry, what our profession really needs, and what this technology offers at the moment. And the human factor is the element that will bridge this gap. We have to develop the skills at a larger scale along the organizations. And we have also to overcome something that I have observed through my involvement in BIM projects for almost 15 years now. Usually we have this scheme. We have three, let's say that we have three levels of human resources in an organization. We have the upper level, the leadership level. Usually these guys are very passionate. They have a vision for their own agenda, for their own reasons, and they say, okay, let's go for it. Let's do what others do and are so proud about. Let's implement BIM in their organization. On the other end of this scale, we have the young professionals that are coming out of education institutions, and they are so strong in technology. They have no fear using a million of applications and software to do their everyday tasks. Of course, they do not have the experience in the construction industry and construction design. But let me just open a very small parenthesis, because I remember that now. I remember how impressed I was when my teens, my boys, were playing in three-dimensional environment games like Minecraft. You cannot imagine how skilled they are in navigating themselves in three-dimensional environment and making advantage of data, similar to what we do in BIM. So we have all these passionate young professionals entering the ecosystem, and in the middle, we have the middle management. I believe this is the most defining part of this equation, because their perspective of interest in power is what can make the difference in this change. I mean, if they find a personal interest when this directive is coming from the upper leadership to implement BIM, they will endorse this and they will make the actions required for this to happen. Depending on their perspective of power, if they don't, they might block it. So this is a very simple scheme, but every time I have cross-checked this in a situation, I found that it works and it provides a Boolean, switch to see why BIM is working in a particular project and why it is not.
Arsene, I just want to go back to you very briefly then. So you mentioned there, you were saying the difference is that initially you were moving effectively from 2D drawing to using a technology, and now it's moving from one technology to the next technology. So which one are you saying is harder?
Obviously, when CAD was introduced, it was an easier move because you were drafting by hand, 2D, and then you moved to a computer-aided design to be drafting in 2D again, but using technology. So it was immediately removing a lot of rework of printing copies or drafting copies or drawings and making modifications on the same drawing, which in manual drafting was quite a labor-intensive job. And now we have a massive population, let's call it population, of and the generation of CAD drafters who are comfortable with their technology and would be ideally resisting new technology such as BIM, even though it might have other, if you just narrow it down and look at it from a doer's perspective, a draftsman or a BIM developer, there is benefits between moving from CAD to BIM, even for that specific role. But it's out of your comfort zone. So it kind of creates that middle layer of resistance that Emmanuel was also describing as the human factor. Then when that happens, it also creates sort of a resistance on the middle management layer. So I'm going to go with Manuel on this.
I think Mohammed was talking about, the digital transformation being project by project ongoing process. And certainly I've, for instance, at the Construction Technology Festival, when we held that in June in Dubai, there was a lot of discussion about areas such as gamification. And actually, considering for how many years we've been running CTF, this was the first year that we really started to see a lot of discussion around that gamification by a lot of different people who were starting to talk about that change from 2D to 3D to actually the immersive experience coming through. And is that something that you're, as a client, starting to want to see, even if it hasn't happened yet?
Gamification per se is a layer of visualization for us, and it has a place in our ecosystem, or at least the vision that we're putting together for the next 3 years. And it supports the visualization, like I said, when it comes to design reviews and approvals. Mohammed mentioned about this earlier in terms of visual walkthroughs, user experience, and approval of these things in a more immersive manner. But on top of that, I also have a small initiative here internally that will help us use gamification for a wider portfolio level, data and model management, which isn't typically supported with CAD and BIM software today. Not to that extent, and not to that level of, let's say, level of intensity in terms of models. So gamification is really geared up to that optimized level of handling such big data on a massive scale in a single environment, which is what we're looking at. And that kind of supports our GIS strategy as well. So visualization, GIS.
The same initiative we have also here in Qadiyah, because managing all these such a huge amount of data, at the end, your BIM model, it's representing your facility as a huge database, and you would like to maximize the use for this database from your perspective as a client. So you would like to use a technology which can handling all of these amount of information, and represent this to the stakeholders based on their involvement in an easy way. So the same thing here is done. But going back to your question, again, it's coming on cascading process that you have to be involved through the whole life cycle of the project with the all project stakeholders. It will not be coming only from the client. It's not coming as a mandate only. This is supposed to be some beliefs and initiatives coming from the consultants, contractors, maybe the government authorities, even to standardize the process across specific programs. Like in Saudi Arabia, we are talking about the PIF, for an example. The majority of the projects is under one umbrella. So at that stage, okay, going back, what will be the end aim for all of these digital transformation? Emmanuel had mentioned that he was happy once he's looking for his kids working with the 3D games and so on. So we are talking about the new coming generations. They are going more and more deeply involved with the technology. So regardless, we believe in it or not, they are the end users for whatever we are doing. So once we are talking about the digital transformation, and we need this right now, and this is supposed to be including all the benefits of this amount of information and so on, because they will use it. Okay, according to the generation theory, at the end they will use it. After we are finalizing our city or our projects, after 5 years, 10 years, 30 years, we are talking about they are the dominant layer of the population, and they will know easily how can they use this. Maybe we are challenging. We have challenges right now to implement all of these processes, but at the end, it will be succeeding.
For that success to happen, and certainly for that success to happen in the future, I suppose this is a bit of a now and in the future question. In terms of the documentation that you require, the BIM documentation, what do you expect, and how at handover, how should it be so that it continues to be useful to you in the future?
For sure, the main reason that you will have the normal documentation, because we are in transient period of transferring from one era to another era. So you will have the same documentation process like the PDFs, CAD drawings, and so on. And for sure, based on your requirements, because you will use this information later on for another uses like the facility management based on these BIM models. So you are talking that I need these BIM models with certain requirements, 1, 2, 3, and so on. By the way, with our projects in Qiddiya, we have the operators. Some of the operators in some projects, they are involved from the beginning, even from the design. So their inputs, have been transferred directly to the consultants to take into consideration. So again, it's process and deliverables. It's not only about the deliverables. Using these models later on, as we mentioned, something for the lease management, it can be used in the immersive experience for the users, purchasing the entities or such things. Also, Arsen had mentioned something which is related to the approvals and permitting. Maybe the approval and permitting will be coming through these digital documents. It's not only will be as the normal way. As we mentioned, it's still evolving. It's not mature yet, but all of these requirements supposed to be transferred honestly to the supply chain to deliver based on it.
So Samantha, turning to you, and kind of, I guess, related to the question I asked, is enough importance being placed on having common systems so that the information can be used?
Coming to this common data environment. So when we are talking about this 2D, it's just basically lines, text, and then layers, nothing else. But when you're talking about BIM, actually it's a complete characteristics, parameters, and then also properties of the complete window is totally defined. So when you're transferring from the beginning, when the design stages is happening, then you'll be developing complete, for example, a window. So you'll be giving a complete brief information about the window in BIM, that what it is, whether it's a double layer, single layer, or what type of product it is. The entire information is captured in that family or the element. And that data will be again transferred to the designer, and then it will be going to the vendor when it is going for the procurement. And from procurement, actually, it will really, when it is fixed at site, you know, like what is the warranty period and how it is happening, and what is the like a replacement strategies, everything. So again, it will go to the facility management as well. So once the drawing is capturing the families and parameters, the entire data is transferring from designer to the contractor, and then contractor to the client doing the facility management. This will ease out the complete problem that what you are seeing as on data, that what in fixture that we have used that nobody knows. But in BIM, actually, you will be clearly specifying which product that we are using and what is the parameter that it has. Maybe, for example, the glass, what we have used, it will be having a particular U value. So that will not be easily captured in the AutoCAD drawings. But in the BIM, it will be stored permanently. And when you're going for the facility management, it is easy for identifying the similar type of product in case if the version is not available. And you will be able to replace that one. And then it is easy for us to again continue further. So this is one part. And second thing is when we are talking about common data environment, wherein all people collaborating and then working together. In 2D, whatever problem that we are facing, like for example, if one person is working on one drawing, the other person will be working on other drawing. So when you're working in collaboration, the entire model will be worked with only one single model, and all the people will be working on the same model. So there is no problem in terms of revisions or in terms of any overlapping. and all mistakes that might happen. So all those things can be avoided by using this common data environment.
So panelists, please stay. You can hide your cameras if you want, but don't go away because we'll come to Q&A after the presentation. So coming up now, we'll move to Sorin Bularka. He's the technical specialist AEC for Autodesk Middle East, and he'll be talking about accelerating digital transformation. And just as I'm handing over to Sorin, also I'll just mention, please do keep your questions coming in. I can see we've got quite a few, but please keep them coming and we'll get to them after Sorin's presentation.
So thanks again, Rob. Hello, everyone. My name is Sorin Bularka, and I'm very excited to be here with you today, representing Autodesk. I would like to share with you some of the latest BIM tools and technology that are designed to accelerate the digital transformation. Happy to hear all the great insights from the panelists earlier. The presentation will be more focused on the technology side. So let's get into it. So if you aren't familiar with Autodesk, we make software tools that help our customer design and make anything from skyscraper to building components to bridges and movie blockbusters or video games. We have over 9,000 employees worldwide and millions of active users of our desktop and cloud tools. And many of our customers are like you, like architects, engineers, and contractors. And I can say it's an exciting time to be part of the AEC industry, as this industry is massive and is growing. And even with the slowdown generated by the pandemic, is now on the path to an accelerated recovery. And you can see this growth all around us, especially in the Middle East. You see new developments, new infrastructure projects, tower cranes, construction crews. And all this is being driven by huge global trends, which are affecting us everywhere, like population growth and urbanization. And recently, Autodesk partnered with a firm called Statista to calculate just how much work needs to be done to meet these trends. And as an industry, we're going to have to build 13,000 buildings every day, and enough roads and rails to wrap up around the earth 30 times a year. And all this between now and 2050. And not only we will have to build new houses, offices, railways, wastewater treatment plants, power grids, we also need to maintain, improve, and protect our current built environment. There are over 4 trillion assets at risk of climate change, and the UN estimates that by 2050, more than 5 billion people could suffer from water shortages. Also, 90% of the world's cities are situated on coastlines exposed to flooding. Now, why I showed you all these statistics is because it's clear that more is inevitable. So we need to design, build, and renovate more buildings and roads. Another reality is that we have less resources. So how do we balance this with the reality of using less resources? And also we have the reality of the fact that building environment is actually consuming a lot of this energy. So 40% of the global energy is actually consumed by buildings alone. 25% also of the water, and also 30% of the global waste is generated by the construction industry. So again, all these numbers are telling us that we need to find better ways of constructing better processes, better tools. We need to evolve in order to reduce basically the wastage and all these numbers that are impacting the entire planet. Now, let's see what does it mean from our perspective. I'd like to start with a simple mind exercise by dismantling or deconstructing the construction process. So if we think about it, at its core, it relies on different specialists in different domains, architects, engineers, contractors, exchanging their knowledge in various forms, which we can call data. So ultimately, we want to capture what's in these people's heads and share it effectively in order to fuel basically the construction activities. And as discussed before, there were different ways of exchanging this data, and paper was and still is very popular way of sharing information in the construction process. We started to use it because there was no better alternative at that time. Probably if we had computers when we started to build, everybody will know BIM now, and BIM will be our second nature, but we started this process with a 2D or paper-based mindset. So some downsides of paper, which are quite obvious and were mentioned also before, is that the amount of information we can share is limited. Also, handling changes can be difficult. Also, there's the sustainability aspect. Paper is ultimately made of trees, which contributes to the reality of less. So we have evolved from the technology perspective, and CAD was a revolutionary technology that emerged in the 80s. It helped the industry move from the reliance on paper itself as a source of sharing data to a digital environment. So it was, let's say, the first step. Although it was an important and necessary step into digitization, it is not very far from the paper-based mindset. So it still falls under the traditional methods for the construction delivery process. So the downside of it is that traditional methods are like a battleship game. They don't give us visibility into the context. So that's also some of the downsides and some of the factors that convinced us basically to move into adopting new technology. Now, if you look at the evolution of this technology that I was talking about, in the past 38 years since Autodesk has been released, there has a huge growth, and we can see that this curve is basically ramping up with the introduction of BIM. So we can notice it as an acceleration basically with the introduction of BIM. So adopting BIM basically opens door to technologies of the future, and brings us into the era of optimization and also in the era of connection. So we can nowadays we can talk of technology that are available, like photogrammetry, which were mentioned before as well, generative design, Internet of Things, robotic construction. It will be very difficult to talk about this technology without making the first step into BIM. Now, again, I don't want to emphasize too much on the benefits of BIM. These are well documented by many studies. Many governments are spending a lot of money to get the right numbers and the right ROI from expanding this technology into the specific environments and countries. These are just some of the examples. So definitely BIM, it will be become the norm, and it's also happening in the Middle East. There's more and more projects that BIM is mandated by governmental entities, by owners. So that's very a very encouraging way. Now, when we look about the people who use it, it might seem complex, and we heard earlier today in the discussion why it seems so difficult sometimes, or why is it so complex? Because it has various points that we need to connect together. There's a lot of responsibilities in a project, process changes, issues, levels of detail, sustainability aspects. It's an entire maze that we need to navigate. But however, we have identified that there are three pillars that if we focus on these three pillars, the successful BIM process can be easier to implement or easier to adopt. So these three pillars are focusing and investing in people, and I think it was also mentioned before, processes as well. You know, we are moving from the paper-based mindset, from the CAD mindset. We have new technology, new models, so this generates new processes, and I'll explain this a bit more. And of course, I mentioned already the evolution of technology. We have new technology that sometimes sits there unused, and it can bring us actually so many benefits in the process itself. So let's take a look at the three pillars. So new activities and processes, basically. What does it mean? Of course, as I explained, because we are changing the way we exchange information and we are dealing with the information differently, we get new benefits from it, or we call them BIM uses. All these BIM uses, as I mentioned, generate new processes, like, for example, clash detection, which is now automated if you have a 3D model. Visualization, now we can create rendering, 4D sequencing, automatic quantification, estimation, scheduling, and many other processes that we need to deal with and we need to master. If we look also at from new roles and new skills, all these activities and processes basically are generating new roles and new skills in the construction industry. So because we operate with data in a different way, this in turn also creates some new roles, as I mentioned, like, for example, the BIM manager, the BIM modeler, the BIM coordinator, but also some roles are disappearing, like the traditional drafter. It's now disappeared. It's a job that we are looking in the past. So data and analytics, they change how AEC firms operate. And some of these changes are invisible to the eyes. And these are the transformation of the business models, basically. Some companies are moving fast to adopt digital platforms to run their business. So by adding these new services to their existing portfolio, and they build new partnerships also, which brings to an emergence of also other roles like chief data officer, chief digital officer, chief transformation officers. Also to support the customers, our customers, to get the right skills for these new roles, or some of these roles, we have launched the online self-learning paths. So these learning paths have 15 minutes episodes, so shorter than your average Netflix series, and they can help you to get the minimum skills, let's say, without disrupting your billable hours. So you can learn it at your own pace. They might not be everything that you need for a specific role, as I mentioned, but it can help you to get up and running, especially specifically for the tools and processes powered by Autodesk technology. Now, speaking of technology, let's take a look at some of the tools. So we know that digital transformation for customers involve more than adopting just one tool. I heard earlier that there's still a confusion between BIM and Revit, or confusing a tool with BIM. We, as a company, we noticed this trend, and that's why 3 years ago we wanted to simplify the offering, and we wanted to give access to our users to more of our BIM tools. So that's why we bundle everything in a collection, which is called AEC collection. It's one single toolbox which can be used for all the project lifecycle. It also, we have also added cloud service to it, so you can even use the power of the cloud. So it can help you from design, in the design phase, where you can create your BIM models. It can help you also in the fabrication. So we have that create automatic drawings, fabrication drawings, and also tools that can help you with the construction processes as well. You can even take it a step further, like our customer Van Wijnen in the Netherlands, which used basically generative design to optimize the cost and the profit to meet their business needs. And they managed to achieve also their net energy goals by using this generative design, which is already available in Revit 2022. Here's another example closer to us, where Bureau Happold Engineering have used the automation tools in our AEC collection to optimize the structure of this highly complex building, which is the Museum of the Future. Here are some amazing shots of the construction process, which are equally impressive as the final building itself. This is all possible by using the latest tools that are available. It's all about collaboration. So going back to some of the discussion points that were raised earlier, and I kind of agree that the two gentlemen in the slides exchanging information is an oversimplification of the process. but in reality, it looks more like this maze, or sometimes even more complex. So AEC projects are incredibly complex, as we know, and they produce an incredible amount of data, and syncing and utilizing all this data was impossible and has been one of the biggest challenges in the industries, and workflows and data has been disconnected. So our customers have had challenges collaborating across many companies and many disciplines. So in order to address this challenge, we have released the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And this is actually a unified platform for the AEC project delivery. Design and data and BIM are in our DNA, and we are uniquely positioned to extend the value of that data throughout the plan, build, and operating phases, letting project data flow seamlessly across the lifecycle of the project and making it available to teams in the right place and at the right time. So having this in mind, a more efficient way to exchanging data is to use basically the AEC collection toolbox to create it. And you can use basically the ACC, the new platform, to collaborate effectively. So Autodesk Construction Cloud is basically a collaboration platform. It enables collaboration, and it allows the users to plug in and enable or disable different services based on their needs or based on the project phase. And one eloquent example of such service is Bim Collaborate Pro, which is mostly used in the design phase, but it can be used also further downstream. So this is a platform for the entire project team. It's for designers. They can work at the same time anywhere while using Revit, Civil 3D, and Plant 3D, so they can work on the same models at the same time. They can exchange information, but it's also very powerful for reviewers and decision makers. So it has equal benefits for the designers and the reviewers and decision makers, because these people, they can just use a web browser to review the project. They can easily share their comments, like, for example, this feature that we have in Autodesk Docs, which is part of the Autodesk Bim Collaborate Pro offering. So redlining now and reviewing can be done digitally, and it's all centralized and maintained. So now we can, get rid of the paper by using this kind of process, and it's also something that we can refer back. It also have the capability of using issues, so we can address them directly. We can track if the issue was solved or not. We can address it to a specific company or a role or a user. So there's much more benefits of using this kind of service. Another and this is from designer's perspective. Now this is a feature in Revit, so it's a collaboration for Revit. Here in Revit, we can specify what information goes out, so we can have control over the parts of the model that we can release. Once it's released, it becomes available in the cloud. All the decision makers can have a view and high-level perspective, or the helicopter view of what's going on in the project. We have this swim lane concept where we can see who releases data and when, and who consumes it and when. So it's the technology basically comes and helps to solve this collaboration problem that was for so long a key problem in the industry. Also, we can track the changes visually, so we can see what has changed from a version to another, so we can see exactly what changes are impacting my work. It has also, we have added automatic clash detection. So this is also part of the offering. So clash detection now is automated as in the cloud. So this means it's in front of everybody. It's centralized, so it's not more disconnected. So everybody can have access to the coordination issues and problems. And here we can create, again, we can create the issues that I mentioned earlier. So we can address the right stakeholders that need to fix the problem. We can create an issue. So directly from the project itself, we can launch these operations and we can track the progress of them. On top of that is data-driven. So it aggregates all the project data. So it gives us a lot of information. Everything that we click, everything that we add is tracked. So we can extract this information and utilize it. We're using these intelligent dashboards. And with this, I would like to just recap. We have seen the 3 ingredients of a successful BIM implementation. the new processes, new roles, and the new tools from Autodesk perspective. And focusing and investing in these at the same level, and not just a single one, will guarantee an easier BIM adoption, we believe, and will generate as a byproduct new connected business ecosystem that will accelerate the digital transformation for the entire AEC industry.
We've got a number of questions. We'll whip through these fairly quickly because obviously I realize that we're going to run over time otherwise soon. So let's go straight into questions. And the first one, I think possibly for Sumant or Amanath, I'm not sure, but the first question is a common data environment essential for a small-sized project?
When it comes to common data environment, the most important challenge even we have when it comes to the data security. For example, if I speak about a country called like India, we don't have the data center set by the tech vendors for any tech vendors though. So it becomes a challenge. First of all, if we have to use the common data environment. And the second thing, when it comes to SME, I mean the small scale projects, yeah, it becomes a better for coordination among the stakeholders, because data is what everyone need at different point of time, and everyone, whatever the data they are gathering, if they keep that updated on the model, it will help both in the design, construction, and also for the operation phase. So it becomes a critical thing because many parties are involved in the project.
If we have that, then obviously once the project is also completed, the complete information will be available with the client for a longer period.
How much have BIM libraries matured? I mean, it's in the UAE, but I think if we say UAE and Saudi Arabia, because we've, obviously we're covering other countries as well, in the construction industry. And are there any platforms for suppliers in those countries to meet BIM library requirements?
So what happens here is when we say about BIM object libraries, it has to be very specific to that region. It's not just we download something from other country and we use it and we cannot link it for the actual construction activities or procurement. So this kind of ecosystem has to be built by new startups in different countries. For few countries, developed countries, they do have their libraries and it's workable for even the construction activities. But when it comes to several countries, they don't have their common libraries where they can use it for their implementation. So such kind of initiatives will really help, even from the tech vendors.
I was going to say exactly the same thing, that there are good libraries available globally. I don't know if it's appropriate to name a few. Well, okay, BIM object is known to anybody, I suppose, and they have also a division related to regions. But there is absolutely a need that there will be initiatives for local libraries also to be developed, taking into consideration the requirements of the specific environment of the project. But it's happening already. I mean, there is a lot of work to be done, but there is something happening in relation to this at the moment.
And then I have a slightly more specific question here. BIM implementation has always been a challenge as an MEP contractor. From our perspective, coordination is the main benefit and interest. Level of development 400 and 500, where more and more detail is to be included to the end user, doesn't motivate us to engage resources, and that's the biggest issue. At what cost should BIM be implemented from an MEP perspective?
This is a great example of what I mentioned earlier. So there is your company or business benefits of doing BIM. And this is an example of an MEP company saying that they benefit primarily from the coordination perspective, which is fair. But then when it comes to investing further to do this and that to meet the requirements, I think that's also fair, because when the client asks anything extra over and above, there usually has to be an allowance at the tender stage or in their proposal to cover for that and to meet the additional requirements set by the client. So they benefit directly as an MEP contractor. And then they satisfy client requirements by adequately pricing the job in advance, so that it doesn't become an overhead.
So when it comes to MEP, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, plumbing, fire protection, the key requirement is there's a lot of elements coming in, and coordination is very critical. And when you have, and these things has to be fabricated outside the site, need to be bought in and assembled, and BIM is the only way for them, especially because if you want to avoid a lot of clashes on the actual site. And it's not about thinking about the benefit, but it's a need of another. And also the initial coordination has to happen between MEP and then comes with other disciplines, and can avoid a lot of reworks and coordination issues and so on.
Our company uses Oracle to input the bill of quantities and costing. How can Oracle be integrated with BIM? Can it, or do you need a third-party plugin?
I'm not very familiar with the Oracle tools, but as Autodesk, we have our own quantification tools. So maybe an alternative will be to look at these. We have now a new product called Autodesk Takeoff, which is also a cloud product, which can be plugged in basically to the products that I've shown before, to the Autodesk Construction Cloud offering.
So they'll probably need a plugin then, is what you're saying, because obviously they're embedded with Oracle.
Yes, so there are plugins. We have integrations with some of the Oracle tools, so that's something that can be also explored. And also we also can look at it from what kind of output you are producing, and if that output can be basically integrated in the Autodesk portfolio somehow. So it's not easy to get a definite answer, maybe just a method. So these are some options. So as I mentioned.
How do the BIM standards impact the company doing the adoption? They're not clear in most countries, and how do we cope with this issue?
If we are talking about BIM standards, you have, again, it's across all the participants within the project. So you will have some BIM standards from client perspective. Another BIM standard can be generated for the consultants and contractors. While we are talking about the standards, maybe it will be related to the libraries, but also the most important thing, which is related to the processes and how come this will be implemented within the projects. If we are talking from client perspective, this is the area that I'm talking from. So I do believe that it's mandatory from the client perspective that you are mandating your standards within your projects to make it coherent across all the deliverables that's coming from the consultants, contractors, even while you are transferring from one stage to another stage. So based on, as Arsen mentioned, based on your contractual or procurement process, if you are working with design bid build, some projects you will work design build, another projects will working early contractor environment, and so on. Based on each procurement process, you would like the handing over from one stage to another stage to be smooth as much as you can. So this is supposed to be clear what you are requesting, delivering the templates to your supply chain, delivering the workflows, the quality checks maybe, and even the collaboration process. So it's, yes, it's different from organization to another organization. It's different from country to another country. It's different from client to another client, but it's very important to be identified from the beginning based on the end user requirements.
Just to add a bit to that, I mean, the standards serve as a guidance for any organization, for that matter, to use it to kind of tailor their own standards and requirements. So, for example, standards have a lot of confusing language,
yes,
which adds up to the existing BIM terminology, which was already confusing for most of the industry stakeholders. So I think it's just a guidance for an organization to use to develop their requirements.
Yeah, there will be some areas which will be flexible for the supply chain to use. Some areas it will be mandatory, they have to follow. So as you mentioned, it's a guidance to make it coherent across the deliverables.
Apologies, I will have to agree to disagree because there is no mandate. It comes down to the business decision. I mean, ISO is not mandating anything on you, for example, right? Or pass for that matter. It's a business decision, no mandate.
No, we are
That's
not talking
opinion.
about. We are not talking about the international standards. We are talking about the project's standards. Some of them, yes, as you mentioned, maybe it will be. We are following some international standards. We are not following that. As you mentioned, it's a business decision. But for an example, if you would like to have, this is a simple example that we need the deliverables to be based on a certain template. This is supposed to be mandate.
You, as an organization, adopting BIM or whatever processes that comes with it, mandating it to your supply chain. But the standards aren't mandated on you as a business. You use standards to define your business needs and mandate them on your supply chain.
Exactly.
That's what I think.
Agree.
In India, most of the top companies are not using BIM. Any specific reason clients are not willing to implement, and any advice for the younger generation where it has never started?
Well, a simple answer for this, because not many clients are asking for it. No, if clients are not asking, you don't want to follow with it. So once client realize the return on investment from BIM, because the initial mature team available in the country is more on a design capability. You have the model delivered, but using it for the field execution, using it for the maintenance, that's where you get the return on investment. If you don't have a capable team to deliver that, that's one challenge. Another side, the clients are not asking for it because clients are not fully matured about it. And there are few clients, obviously, they're asking for, like for airports, healthcare, for metros, high-speed trains, for some of the transmission distribution lines, and industrial projects. But if the majority of clients are not realized about benefits of BIM, they are pretty practical. They want you to show you the return on investment. It's because initially you started investing on the technologies, hardware, and the manpower in the design phase. And then you only see the returns in the construction and handover and operation phases. So if you don't have a capable team to deliver that, then there is no return on investment. And that's a key challenge, It's connected between the client expectations and the team capability to deliver it. Both are interconnected.
Yeah, and I think even it will be comfortable for them to just outsource getting the model done by third party when the clients are very limited.
One of the inhibitors in BIM, particularly at handover, is the supply chain management and integration of models. How do we mitigate this? And an associated question to this I have, which is a simple one. Somebody has asked, when you're talking about the integration of models, can you just explain in a bit more detail what you mean?
There is no such thing as integration of models unless you're using different platforms and you want to, plug data from one to another. That's a simple answer. Okay. The first question, in my opinion, I didn't understand which part of the project the question refers to, but supply chain, as far as the supply chain enablement is concerned, there is two stages to that. One is obviously your capital delivery and your OPEX. So with the capital delivery, you drive it obviously with your information requirements and a suite of documents that defines exactly what you want, when and how. This is the best you can do, in terms of influencing the supply chain to deliver to your needs.
Okay.
At the CapEx. And for the OPEX, when we're talking about transferring information from CapEx to OPEX, I think in our case, we are an owner operator. We will be using the data. So there is no such thing as mandating. We have to just make sure that for example, our equipment and part suppliers are aligned to and plugged into the system that we will be deploying for
operation.
Mohammed, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, exactly. As Arsen mentioned, it's the mandate. It will be in the area of handing over from the CapEx to OpEx. And these requirements is initiated in the contracts in the beginning to be included within the deliverables, which will be handed over. And this is based on the system that you are working in the operation and maintenance. As I mentioned, again, based on your goals, if you are using it for each facility, and if you're using this on across the city level, it's based on your requirements. But the mandates, it will be in the delivery from the CapEx to the OpEx.
We have a question here, which is a little bit more open. As a contractor, what challenges will I what are the challenges I face in applying BIM technology, such as modeling, shop drawing, generation, coordination issues, etc., at the construction stage with poor design documents built on traditional AutoCAD?
If there is poor design document, they will be facing a problem regardless of the way the design has been prepared. I mean, bad and uncoordinated design is is a problem if it is prepared by hand, by CAD, or by BIM. But anyway, I believe that there's a great motive, even if they have been handed over with bad, when I say bad, I mean uncoordinated, not efficient, and not accurate design documentation. Depending on many factors that we are not aware, they are project specific. I believe it's a very good idea to implement BIM during construction, even if this is the starting point. Because according to my opinion, what is BIM mainly about is about preparing a digital replica of the real construction. So you have the chance, you have the possibility, you have the opportunity to take decisions in a safer environment, to make analysis, to simulate, to verify the constructability, and to verify that there are no unwanted classes. So this building in the safe environment, that is a digital environment, of course, boosts confidence and makes execution a lot of easier. So by developing the BIM models, even based on 2D drawings that are not, as we said, of good quality, will be also the way to identify the problems in the design in a more clear and transparent way. So they will avoid surprises and unwanted rework and the waste and losses during the execution of works.
Thank you to everybody who asked questions. Like I said, we have had a lot of questions and more than we can get through. And thank you also to our panelists. So thank you to Emmanuel, Mohammed, Arsen, Amanaf, Samantha, and also thank you to Sorin for your presentation as well. Well, like I said, we'll put this broadcast up in a few days' time on DC Hub. And with that, thank you very much and goodbye.